The Flyin Lion says,
boys, hell is real.
2023 Supporter Shield champs.
So glad that I can be back with people who know that it's a Flyin Lion.
It shows how much we all love this club.
Yeah, just a fan of the sport, you know.
It's definitely tougher to be an academy player than it is a pro.
Soccer is my favorite sport now.
Jersey swap. Car of the week, trivia question of the week. Welcome back, everyone, to another edition of the Flyin Lion Podcast. We appreciate you joining us because, all in all, it was a little bit of a tough week for FC Cincinnati. But we're going to break down what went on with these two matches, what we can improve upon. And Sam, always remembering, it's very early on in the season. We have a full season to go, a lot of matches to be played, and I think we can kick it into gear. This is not the end.
Yeah, to quote the great Aaron Rodgers, right? Relax, right? RELAX. It's literally just got done with the fourth MLS match day. So a lot more to come. We knew that at the beginning of this season, it was going to take a while for this group to kind of mend and to grow together, especially with, we're coming off of injuries in the back line too. So we'll touch on all those things, how we can correct it, what to look forward to as far as matches coming up, different things like that. So stick in there, FC fans. I mean, we've been through worse. I can promise you that.
Yeah, I mean, we just got so used to winning, for so long that I think like we're spoiled by that. And then, it just needs to come together. Like you said, like there's so much talent. We just have to kind of kick it into gear. And we'll touch on a little bit, on that topic. We'll briefly do kind of a recap of the Tigres game and kind of conclude our talk about CONCACAF Champions Cup for the year as we got knocked out of that competition. We'll recap match day 4, away loss at Charlotte, and then second part of the episode, a lot of miscellaneous news going on, some new players added, maybe an update for Matt Miazga. And then we still do have another match at home, Sam, coming up on this next Saturday. So a lot to talk about, actually. It never ends in FCC land. But we'll start with the Tigres match. So on Tuesday, we played the second leg. Going in, it was a 1-1 draw. Aggregate was on them with away goals. For this game, we had talked about the buildup and, what would it be like playing down in Mexico again? There was only about 28,000 people that went to the game. Their stadium holds about, 41,000 roughly. So about 67% full on a 6-day notice, or I guess would have been 2-week notice, on the second leg. But still, I would have expected maybe a little bit more down there. It was still, a solid atmosphere once the, fans got really into it and then they started playing well in the second half. I think we did see some FC Cincinnati supporters that made the travel down. So props to them because the boys needed, every bit of it, especially in that second half.
Yeah, absolutely. Pretty much just energy. That's what they needed throughout the whole game. And, it makes you think almost like what if the second leg was at TQL rather than, over at El Volcan. So, it is what it is. Another one of those hypotheticals that you can draw up if you want. But yeah, it was tough.
I mean, you see the record for MLS squads, going down to Mexico, and it's not great, especially in the leg 2 matchups. We saw Seattle got absolutely killed, by Cruz Azul. And then unfortunately, with our loss as well. So it kind of reiterates that point. But then you look at Vancouver and they're just like an outlier. Vancouver ends up beating Monterrey down in Mexico. It wasn't at their, famous stadium, but still a great result for them. And against kind of the run of tide for what it's been. So in this match, Sam, we saw probably our strongest starting lineup that we've had, yet far in the season, with Orishano there, with Denke and Evander, Wobodo, Buka, and then our typical back line, with Havin Hidebe, and then at the time, Flores. So all things in all, first 45 minutes is probably one of the better, I would say performances in a way that we had up to that point. And just coming out and taking the crowd out of the game, showing that we belong, but you got to do it for 90 minutes is the big thing. And, I just felt like they had a little bit of some good play, in them, a lot of chances that we created. And we actually get a goal in the 18th minute. What did you see in this moment?
Yeah, I mean, we saw exactly what Orishano brings to our team, right? He's splitting two defenders with his dribbling, breaking the ankles of another defender and crosses it back into the box for Evander, who was kind of just waiting there patiently. He puts it in, beautifully executed goal. It was funny, at the time, broadcast is calling Orishano Kubo. So that was funny in the moment, but definitely a high, especially in the first 18 minutes, like you had said, taking the crowd out of the game, getting, pretty much on the front foot there, which last season we weren't really, doing. We were waiting to score in the second half. So
Sure.
nice to see that at least. But really saw a drop off of energy after that.
Well, we saw it last year too. Like, unfortunately, we take the lead, and I don't know what it is about this team lately where, you have that lead and then you just kind of just drop off. Now, to Tigre's credit, like they're bringing multi-million-dollar players off the bench, and we just don't have that luxury with the current setup in the MLS. So, second half, we hold our own for a solid, I would say, like 20 minutes. And
Just battling.
we just we're literally like fighting off of crosses. And then what I think somebody made a really good point about was if we saw how high our press was in the first half and the energy that we had, and then you like saw progressively towards the end, like we score, and then towards the end of the first half, like you see it kind of drop off, and then you go to the second half and it drops off even more. So that line of confrontation, not having that press and just kind of bunkering in because you're so tired is going to lead you to just be taking, so much heat, so much pressure. And it kind of reminded me of early FC Cincinnati and MLS play where you just didn't have that outlet. You didn't have that guy to kind of hold the ball up. And, I don't know if Denkey is the right guy, for this type of system. Honestly, we could talk about that later, but just like a single man system to hold the ball up and relieve pressure. Like there was moments where we just had to clear it out, and just send the ball up. And the dude was gassed. He had been playing so many matches.
Yeah, it was
It just was
interesting.
hard to watch that.
With Orishano, like whenever he had the ball, possession on his side, he was calling Denke to come down and hold
Yeah.
up play on his side because there wasn't anybody else over there. And it almost looked like a couple of times Denke just refused and stayed back, in the Tigres half. And you're wondering like, what's going on? Like, we need ball movement here. Like you need to be able to come down and be able to help out a little bit, help out the midfield area because that was a big problem. Like you said, Buka, his feet are gone. Like he's been playing a lot of games, a lot of minutes.
Well, and
Obi,
Sam, we had a lot of
yeah,
question about like formation too. Going into this, Toronto game, we played a four-back system. We weren't sure if we were going to go 4 or 5, in the back for the second leg, and they roll out in a five-back system again. So how much does, having all of these new players together, trying to adapt to a new style every game, in different ways or the way you're trying to play, how much does that affect them? I don't know. But what, from the 64th minute through the 72nd, like there's 3 goals scored against us and it's like over before we could even know what happened, and I think it almost happened. I think it did happen again, right? In the Charlotte match, the same thing. So when you have one mistake, I always look to the captain of the team. And I always look to the guy where you have to say, all right, how do we keep our composure? I talked about it in last week's episode, is just keeping your composure. You're going to have these moments. Like we knew we were going to have it, but how do you react? Okay, well, we get one scored against us. Like, all right, it's not the end of the world, but you just saw heads go down and you just saw a lot of energy just dropped and deflated. And honestly, and in part, I think, in the 58th minute, Pavel Buka goes out, and it was more of like I think he said fatigue. They're trying to managing minutes and prevent injury, but I mean that dude was the heartbeat, and he just destroyed for a solid 58 minutes in the midfield. You lose that piece, and you kind of just lose a lot of your gel. Sam, I don't want to take your stat, but Buka, I'm going to do it. Buka's played 50 out of the possible 52 matches for FC Cincinnati since the start of 2024, starting in 48 of them. So, I mean, this dude is so vital to the team that you saw even immediately when he comes out, just how fastly, it fell apart, or fast, I should say. I don't know, fastly, how fast it fell apart. But yeah, I don't know. It's fascinating. In the back line, especially, like you want Miles Robinson to be like, look, it's not the end of the world. You need him to talk to Hadebe, to Flores, like, look, like how do we keep our composure? How do we keep our shape? Getting Angle on the same page. There's times where he was caught up and out of position. So that's where I think you miss Matt Miazga, where every time we get scored on, he's like, this is not acceptable. Pick it up, and
Yeah.
you see him getting on people about that. Where, I just don't know if we have that right now. And that's kind of like a learning piece. And I came out of this match, we end up losing. We lose the aggregate 4-2. Just with a couple of thoughts, that I have about it. And one being just the differences in depth between the two squads. How much, again, it is difficult to go down and play in Mexico. And then really for us, like, how is this going to be a learning moment? What can we take away from this? We played quality competition. We hung with them. But, like Pat had said, like, you got to play 90 minutes that way. You can't just play 45. So that's what I came up with. What were your takeaways?
Yeah. I agree with you. And with what Pat said, talking about fatigue, especially, this was the 7th game and it really caught up with him. That's what he was saying. And so, when you play that amount of games, you got to be ready for it. And for the second year in a row, we're not ready to take that next step, in a Champions Cup competition. So I look forward to seeing what we do next season. Hopefully, once again, we continue to learn and learn. But I think that's another thing that the coaching staff needs to understand, with the players that they have, right? Like, we got to be able to understand we can't take Buka off in one of those situations. Like, yeah, he'll probably be, gassed for the next game, but at that point you're winning 1-0, right? And if he's such a crucial piece, do you want to continue in the Champions Cup or not? And make headlines like the Whitecaps did, right? So we could have been right up there with him going, wow, like FC Cincinnati went down there, showed Tigres who's boss in Mexico, and be coming out of there a whole lot different.
Yeah, and if you get past that, then Galaxy advances, so then you're potentially playing them. And they haven't had a great run of form lately either, so that would have been nice. But we move on. We go to MLS play and focus our full attention there. If there is a blessing of this, it's now we can focus on one competition. I think to kind of cap that off, and to your point of next season, for me it's. I don't want to go and just blame it all on preseason. There's a lot of things to go and look at and what could have been different, but we got away with a lot, over the first several games for a gelling team, a lot of moving pieces, a lot of our offensive pieces that, weren't even solidified until the week of the start of the season, holdouts, as well. So in a way, like, Pat Noonan had his hands tied, and you finally get these guys together, and like, how much do you expect out of them to go and win in that environment where this team is in mid-season form and you're just starting out your season? Like, we're always going to be at a disadvantage there. And then you add the fact of what happened in our preseason. So in a way, like, not surprised. I hate to say that, but that's kind of what my thought was when we did predictions, is just, I just didn't feel like we quite had it all together. And like, I know you said
I was a little bit more hopeful over here.
You predicted that we would win it. And on talent, like, I give you that on paper. It's just, there's such a thing about like congestion, travel, and then the disadvantage that we had. Maybe if these guys had more of a preseason all together, it'd be different. It's always just a fascinating ordeal every time we play in this competition. I think we talked about it is, if this was in, let's say August when Leagues Cup was played, would this have been different? Would that have changed kind of the outcome of this if it was flip-flopped? It's easy to kind of look at and say, oh, for sure. But I don't know. That's a talented team. They play in a very tough stadium, so we'll see. I think moving forward, again, a lot to learn from it. 2 years in a row and exit in the round of 16. Like, we got to show out better in cup competitions and meaningful, ways that we can get trophies, honestly, is what it is, and get our name up there on the CONCACAF list. in the rankings. So
Well, I think that's just to your point of being better in cup competitions. That's where our roots are, right?
yeah,
We are the wreckers, in cup
sure.
competitions when it comes to back to in USL days. We were the people that were just in there being like, why is this team here? Like that is the identity that we need to kind of embrace once again. And you would have thought it would have been on the 10-year anniversary. That would have been, so great, right? But
We have a lot of other competitions to go.
yeah.
That's the nice thing about it. Again, like we said in the intro, is we moved on to match day 4, and Sam, you had predicted a loss in this one. I think I had a draw, but everything felt like bad about this, and even to start, I didn't feel like fantastic, going into it. I just hope the players could get up for it. We end up rolling out just a solid lineup again, like not really rotated. Again, I think it was pretty much the same exact lineup, wasn't it? If not like just slightly different with the back 4
Yeah.
versus the back 5. So in this one, he goes back to the back 4 and gives Hadebe a break at least to start. And then unfortunately, early on in the match, Miles goes down, which we'll get to. But yeah, it's interesting looking at like, okay, I think we mentioned Charlotte's going to be a tough atmosphere going from Tigres to there. Like that's a very tough, thing to do. But we were actually unbeaten in the last 10 matches on turf. We had never beaten, Charlotte away. And I was hoping that would be some more motivation for them. What was your opinion, I guess, to start the match, though, on some early chances that we had? I felt like it was decent. We were kind of weathering the storm in some ways, but
yeah,
we had some
it felt like it
chances,
was two different styles I was watching. Obviously, like we've talked about, even like the past couple of seasons with Dean Smith, right? The way he plays or wants to play, right? A lot of over the top. Soccer likes to have a big striker up top and be able to like go get the ball, right? Type mentality where you could definitely tell FC Cincinnati was wanting to remain patient, playing between the lines, and there were a lot of times where we broke free and were able to have those chances. First, Evander and Denke had a chance early, but unfortunately, once again, Engel is able to play a ball back into the box. We've seen this all season so far. He plays beautiful balls into the box, and just nobody's able to get a foot on it. Denke's a step off because he was flat-footed, wasn't really ready for the pass to be back into the box. So chances like that where you're like, we gotta be ready for those.
Well, and I think like he's seen enough of the fact that Engel likes to play those early balls in. He doesn't really take a touch to set up his cross.
Yeah.
He hits it first time. And I think like by now you should come to expect that and just anticipate and, throw anything on it that you can. And he was just kind of late to that, and it was right in front of the goal. So yeah, that was a huge chance. But then the 30th minute, Sam, like we mentioned, Miles Robinson goes out. I think it was him and their striker, at the time, Ajimang.
A good tackle.
Yeah, he makes a nice tackle on one-on-one with Ajimang, but felt some tightness after it. Didn't want to risk it. Maybe a smart move, honestly, in a way to prevent further injury.
Especially to the back line. Yeah,
and you're on turf. So that can wear on you even if you play another 60 minutes of this match. But the tides really shifted. They had pressed a little bit more. Obviously, having Hadebe and Flores there, they know there's an opportunity, and they kind of just went on the hunt. And I felt like there was a big shift in the tide. Like, would have it ultimately changed the outcome of the game? Like, potentially, because I think Miles is still a big glue guy compared to the other two. In my personal opinion, like this happens, and I think you got to go to a 5-back, or 3 center back system when he goes out. Like, I just don't know if Flores and Hadebe are ready to play together.
Them a little bit more than you would have liked,
especially on the road where your guys are gassed and you're only having 2 center backs in that moment. Like, pull a guy in and add more in the back. Like,
yeah, I think that's where adding like an Alvis Powell into the back would have been nice.
Or even slide Yedlin into the middle and have Powell play out wide. Like, I just think it creates a better setup for us, especially off of what we had Tuesday, where the guys were at. I know you want to create and you want to get the offense going, but
get a draw away.
Yeah, that's a good result, So I just was confused by having those two guys together in a four-back system even after it. And that's a tough task to ask, again, of a 21-year-old center back who's looked, again, very impressive. But
on a U.S. men's national team international guy now.
there's only so much that this guy can do and hasn't honestly even really played next to Hidebe because Miles has really been that point guy in the center when we play the three-back. So that was, again, just interesting that we decided to do that. Coming after half, I think Orishano has probably arguably the better chance of the match for us besides the Denke one, where we just see his patented left foot, strike. I think Buka plays him and he hits it upper 90 and the keeper makes a nice save on it. And I think Orishano really wanted that one.
Oh yeah, especially goalie of the year last year. So unfortunately, we're up against a tall task on that end as well, which he made some great saves this game to be able to prevent us from entering the score sheet. But yeah, he definitely wanted that one. It was textbook Orishano on that.
Yeah, and then not even a minute later, Charlotte gets their goal, and it just comes on a boneheaded mistake that you don't see Pavel Buka make. It was a lack of communication. I think you had nailed it right when you said it. Between Yedlin and him, I think Buka thought that he was deeper and Yedlin had stepped forward. And so then Charlotte's on the run, and it just leads to an easy breakaway goal for them. I would say slightly against the run of form, but not really, because again, once Miles went out, they had started to dominate more possession and energy. And I know you see your captain go out like that, but again, if Obi's going to take the captain armband, we just need some leadership to just keep the group together. And you have that moment where there's a mistake. You have your captain come over and say, look, it's all right. We're good. We're still in this, and then 3 minutes later they score again.
Yeah, it was almost like you said, you gotta be able to hold right as much as you can, especially after a mistake like that. You make a mistake and the floodgates are open after that point. That's what happened against Tigres, right? We make one mistake, let one goal in, and the floodgates are open. So it's almost felt like that's been the thing.
In Philly match, too. It was the same thing. So what are you missing? A leader.
Yeah.
You're missing a guy that holds people accountable and says, this is not acceptable. We cannot do, and when you go down like that, you don't put your head down. You say, all right, how can we get better? And honestly, you go down 2 goals and then we actually started playing. I actually felt like we started to create some chances. We actually played with a little bit more energy, but you got to do that from the get-go. You can't wait until you're behind to start that. And it's all of a sudden we had a second wind. Granted, he did get some subs on there to help with that, but it's just frustrating with that, and I think that's a small thing that you can tinker with. I don't think, again, they were set up for success, honestly, with the way that we had our back line, especially against a hot offensive team, like Charlotte playing at home on turf. But you still got to do what you can, and a lot of people are saying, the excuses are piling up: preseason, match congestion, injuries, this, that. You still have to perform. And we saw, I think, a lot of adjustments in, I think, 23, where Pat made the tactical decisions correctly, and it at least salvaged a draw. This one felt like if you could maybe keep a 3-back system, maybe we get out of this with a single point and you're feeling better about it.
Yeah, I agree. I think the chances we had in that second half after the 2 goals, it almost felt like a different team. And
yeah,
I was calling for let's get some subs in there, especially after that second goal. You gotta put some more energy on the pitch, or else you're not going to see anything different. And almost, a couple of times had a third goal on us, arguably, especially at the end of the game. I think they had a header on target. Celentano makes a great save, but yeah, the best chance we had, in the second half, arguably, was the Evander right free kick, which that would have put us right back in it, because that's a moment that you're going, okay, free kick, here we go. This was, against the run of form, and boom, we're right back in it. Need one more goal. Let's go.
Yeah, you need moments like that, and that's where I think if Evander's going to be the number 10, you should have multiple moments a game that you're getting that. And honestly, it's just unlucky. Like it hits the
Yeah.
inside of the post, but it doesn't go in. It goes
Yeah.
all the way across the goal.
The keeper wasn't even contesting it either. So.
Yeah, I mean, we saw that one. The one you referenced in the first half, like he takes a quick shot left-footed too. Like you have some brilliant moments. I just want him to be more consistent in how he impacts the game. If I had an ask, about Evander, like he's brilliant. He's had some awesome chances, but like I feel like sometimes he's like a little bit out of the game and he tries to get in it. Like you saw in the first half, they mentioned it even at halftime. He drops all the way back to the left back position to get the ball. I mean, how does that affect our buildup if your number 10 is all the way back there trying to get the ball? Like he's trying to get more involved into the game. How can we do that with keeping him forward though? And I just don't see him making that sharp run into the box or that decisive moment where I think he just needs to be a little bit more, into the game in that aspect, like consistently throughout. And maybe that's just getting acquainted with some of the guys. You still see where like him and Denkey trying to play each other is a little bit off, or Kubo and Denkey a little bit off. And we saw that early last season as well. They were able to kind of correct that as it went on. So that's kind of what I'm going to be looking forward to. It's just, again, like, are you going to play with one more additional attacker up there? And that was the other thing I wanted to bring up is like, if you're going to change the tactics and the formation, like I felt like at times guys didn't know when to when to drop back, when to support their other players, in certain possessions as well. So there's got to be better communication with that too. Ultimately, it's a 2-0 loss. Another 2-0 loss at Charlotte. Sam, go ahead.
Well, we had the big moment.
Oh
though.
yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
We should touch on that.
So big moment before the final whistle there. Flores actually picks up his second yellow. Second yellow and then a red card. So earlier in the game, he was actually shown a yellow on a potential goal scoring opportunity. So got away with a little bit.
Was it VAR for a dog stand?
VAR one. Ended up just giving him a yellow. So at the time, it was like, like we got away with one. Unfortunately, came back to bite us. There was a 50-50 ball contact on both sides and just should not have been a foul at all. Unfortunately, no VAR reviews on second yellows, so he will be serving out his suspension because it's also a little bit harder to appeal a second yellow rather than just a straight red. So probably not going to be seeing Flores for the next game. So, I mean, just a bad break there at the end of the game. And it wasn't even like a frustration foul or anything. Like I thought he played the man well, like he bodied and it was good.
I mean, Pat was pretty livid about it, understandably. I don't know how you call that in that moment. And then, I mean, it just adds insult to injury when you already have a center back goes out in this match, and then you have another one that goes out and is out for the next match. Like, I mean, it just added to frustration. You could tell the bench was boiling over about it too. We'll see how that affects the next game. I mean, because there's a lot to talk about with that Atlanta match, and we'll get to that. I guess, again, overall impressions from it. We're now 8th in the Eastern Conference. We're 4 games in. There's so many matches to be played. We haven't seen a early, bad run of form in terms of losses, since I think 2022 was the last time we had 2 losses in the first, 4 games in MLS play. But if there's a time to do it, it's early and to figure that out. Hopefully, with solidifying some things and hopefully a formation, that comes to be less of an issue. And you get the hard match out of the way, playing Charlotte away and Philly away, tough matches. And looks honestly, Charlotte looks like they're going to be a pretty solid team. So if there is a blessing out of that, it's maybe playing them at home later on the season, you feel a little bit more favorable about that. But anything that you took away from this?
No, I just thought it was interesting that, this is the first shutout from us on the first time this season that we've been shut out. So, obviously it's not a stat that you're this was the first, but it does say something about we have fought a little bit harder in some of the other games where, like you said, we've, fallen back, in the Philly game, in the Tigres game, at least we've gotten one goal, right? So
Yeah, I mean, it almost felt like the Evander one was just like at the time, in the Philly match, I think we went down 3-1, and then Denke had a chance to make it 3-2. So, yeah, I mean, there is some fight there. That is interesting. It's the first time we got shut out. I felt like we had already,
Yeah, I know,
honestly,
right?
in some of the games, but we move on. That's what I'm taking away. Just get rid of the tape for the week, learn at least, from these matches, and how we can kind of solidify things. But I have a trivia question for you before we go to break here. Kind of an interesting one related to the formation change. So trivia of the week presented by Goals TV. What is Pat Noonan's record using a four-back system in 11 matches?
It's interesting because I know, when they first went back to the back four a couple weeks ago, we were talking about how I think he had 2 or 3 wins against Toronto with the back four, so at least has those. So I think I'm gonna go overall record 5-4-2.
All right, Sam's locking it in. So 5 wins, 4 losses, and 2 ties.
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, stay tuned to the end of the episode and we will give you the answer. We'll be right back. Hey, FC Cincinnati fans. We are pumped to share our new sponsor, Peak Cocktails.
I'm sipping on the passion fruit margarita, which is so spicy and it makes me feel like I'm on the beach.
Ooh, that sounds great. I'm drinking the Blood Orange Spritz, which has a great subtle ginger flavor coming from its scientifically formulated recipe to promote exercise recovery, enhance relaxation, and support a better night's sleep.
Ryan, that's exactly why I love them. Their cocktails are designed to fit seamlessly into your health-conscious lifestyle, giving you the enjoyment of a delicious adult drink without the downsides of alcohol.
Guys, next time you are looking for that post-workout drink or an afternoon pick-me-up, grab a Peak Cocktail. Visit them at www.peakcocktails.com and use the code Flyin Lion at checkout to get 20% off your first order. Zach, enjoy your drink. Welcome back, everyone. Thanks for listening to our sponsor there. We wanted to jump right in with some second half action. This is going to be a little bit more upbeat and exciting because we're over last week. We're so over it, ready to move on. We did have some funny things that happened in the last week. I want to hear your card of the week for this one.
Yeah, so card of the week for this week. I don't know if anybody else saw out there while they were watching, but we had some ripped jerseys out on the field. There was a lot of aggressive tackles during this Charlotte game, and in the first half, I see that Buka's jersey has been pretty badly ripped on the number 2 on his 20 jersey, and then in the second half, I see Vander had a rip on the back of his jersey as well. So this is kind of the first time that I'm seeing these lightweight Adidas jerseys kind of doing this. And then it made me think I've been in some of the team store a little bit, and I saw that if you pick the authentic jersey, it seems to be it feels lighter and, in my opinion, cheaper. And I saw that on some of the kits that the Apple TV was actually peeling off on some of them. And on the non-authentic ones, they were actually more durable, looked like they could hold up a little bit better. So just from a merch standpoint, I thought that was interesting.
I'm looking at my Apple TV one. I'm wearing the new kit right now. And my TV, the V is actually starting to peel up already. Couple time wearing it already and it's starting to peel. That's interesting. They didn't even make the Apple, the pattern that the players wear
for
on the field.
Yeah.
So that is interesting too. It does feel lighter, wearing this new kit right now too. I would agree with that. It is the first time I've seen them rip, if there is like a positive out of it. Like,
and it looked
they're
very easily ripped too. Like,
yeah. And that was the white kit, it wasn't this new blue one here. It was last year's kit. The turf definitely played something into it maybe, or was that more of just like a rip or a pull from another player? I don't know.
Probably both. Yeah.
It just kind of reminds me of the terrible jerseys we saw or uniforms last year, in the MLB. It's like kind of the cheaply made
see-through
stuff, see-through, but this time it was more of the rippage going on there.
Yeah, we're gonna have to keep an eye out for that for the rest of the season, especially like all around the MLS of like anybody else having this problem.
Any thoughts on Charlotte's jersey? I felt like that's one of the nicer kits in the MLS. The one that they wore, the black ones.
Yeah. They're pretty decent. They probably call like Crown Legacy
Something.
kit, something probably like that, right? Oh well. But Ryan, what was your car of the week? What you got? What you frustrated about?
So mine's kind of tied in with yours, but the turf monster, man, it got Miles Robinson. You know, he comes out with an injury. Whether that was all turf related, I'm going to blame it on the turf. And then just understanding like, so I've torn my ACL on turf myself, but maybe the ripped jersey's also coming from a little bit of the turf action there. But like, why are we still playing on turf? You know, in the MLS. You know, if we want to be taken seriously as a competitive league around the world, like every year we talk about it, but I'm bringing it up again here is like, if there's a way that we can avoid this and just get sod down, you know, they're not even playing. The Panthers aren't even playing for months. You know, you could at least put grass over top of it. I don't know. I just don't understand it. We had been doing well on turf. You know, oddly, I kind of looked at that stat and I was like, this is kind of strange. But yeah, it kind of became more solidified in this one, why I hate it.
Yeah, I wonder, guys. I mean, we saw all the news and all the what players were saying, coming out of the Copa America, right? When it was hosted here and, talking about, what they thought of the turf and, oh my gosh, like there's no space in these NFL stadiums in the corner to be able to, do anything. So, I mean, we got World Cup coming up. We've got, Club World Cup coming up. So it's going to be interesting to see.
They're not going to play on turf, though, for the World Cup.
Well, so the Giant Stadium's actually getting real turf here?
They're going to get, like actual sod grass.
See, that's the thing that bugs me the most is that they're like, oh, okay, like for these big, World Cup, like we'll get real grass. Why don't you just keep it? Just keep it.
Because you saw for Copa America last year, they brought it in and they had it. And they're like, oh, this is going to be the same stuff, that they're going to use for the World Cup. And it's like, yeah, like then why don't you just use it for everyone, And I don't even know if it's that much of an advantage for teams at home. Like maybe it is, but, Miles Robinson gets hurt on turf again. That's why he left Atlanta.
Yeah.
So we always kind of hold our breath when we go to these matches. It's just like, all right, what's going to happen? What thing is going to get us this time? But yeah, that was frustrating to me. Hopefully we'll get more and more of a change to more grass. I think we've seen that for
our grass has been really good this season.
Yeah, shout out to the grounds crew. I know this year, what do we have? 2 concerts though in the summer, and we're hosting a Club World Cup game, so they have their work cut out for them. But
yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, we shall see. But on the flip side, Sam, what you got for jersey swap of the week?
Yeah, jersey swap of the week is going to go to Evander. We talked about he's had, decent performances the past 2 games, had a nice goal against Tigres, had a couple chances from outside the box against Charlotte, which means, Ryan, in the next couple games, look for a goal from the outside the 18 from either him or Orishano. I'm calling it now. You can come back to this moment and be like, man, he was right. It was coming. But once again, kind of how Ryan alluded to earlier, we kind of need him to be a little less carefree out there at times. But once again, if that's just who he is and he's able to create the chances that he does, keep doing what you're doing. But hopefully, once again, we can get the front 3, front 4 going here soon.
I think what's interesting with like watching him, it's such a different style of a number 10. And we knew that going in, compared to Lucho, but once you see it on your team consistently, it's almost like a nonchalant type thing. Like, he cares.
Yeah.
I know he cares because at the end of the game, like he was yelling at the sideline ref about whose ball it was on a throw-in. So I know, or a foul, I think it was. So I know he cares. It's just the way that he shows it. Like Lucho was just so animated and so vocal and so, you know what I mean? And then Evander in some ways just acts like, not that he doesn't care, but like just the way he goes about like playing the game is so smooth. And he kind of like glides through the game, where I think that's going to be a little bit of an adjustment to see.
Yeah, and that's 10. And once again, that might just be us, right? Like that's something that we need to get accustomed to seeing. Like you said, this guy, he did not come into being a number two. Like he was just a central midfielder, and has kind of been told, hey, like you got to be a number 10.
Right.
Was great last year for the Timbers as that number 10, and so he's kind of tried to develop into that. But once again, like you said, non-traditional. So
Well, even in the setup, I think we had such a fluid front three that at times Evander drifts, back a lot more to receive the ball, like you said, or out wide. But like, is that what we need in the buildup? If we're not getting progressive passing through some of the other players, like what are we doing for creation then? And that's where I kind of struggle, and I wish that we would kind of figure that out a little bit more. I'm sure we will. We'll get to that here in a second, but my jersey swap was Luca Orishano. I think you saw his quality in the Tigres match. I mean, he made like these unbelievable Mexican defenders just look silly. He beat 3 defenders in his run that created the goal. A right-footed cross, I will say, to the assist for Evander, so props to him for that. And just being dangerous against Charlotte too. I felt like at times like they shut him down well, like, or they minimized his opportunities, but in the chances that he had, like the upper 90 shot, he did well with. He created some down that side where I think Tim Reen had a lot to handle, and once they kind of figured it out and how to manage that, they did better from their side of things. But I think Luka is always dangerous, and you always have to equate for him. And moving forward, like I just want to see that, and then how can we take the next level from that? And we saw him create that goal on Tuesday in the Tigres match, but how can he do that even at the next level? How can he be that chance plus guy? In spotting moments last year, he did it, but are we going to ask more of him this year? And can he, do that for us?
yeah, it is amazing the way I mean, I think the correct adjective that like he's slippery, right? Like
He's
he's
very
a
slippery.
like player. Like
Yeah.
the way he dribbles, it's smooth, kind of like Evander. Being able to he's literally, people are making him go right. They're like, hey, we're forcing you to the right, and he still has the audacity to dribble past them on his left foot.
Yeah. He's
So
crafty with it too.
yeah, exactly.
I
But like
mean,
they can't take it away from him, and it's right, like it's closer
yeah.
to them. It's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, his touch is unbelievable, and like he knows how to get out of tight spaces, and it's just the quick acceleration, the change of speed, and the one touch that blows by him. But I think in some moments this past game he was trying to do a lot on his own because he felt like he had to create.
Well, clearly because
He sees some of the other guys that were doing that.
He's taking shots from half field, right?
I mean, I think he was just getting frustrated. Yeah, so I mean, we'll roll into it. So how can we kind of correct our current form? Like 2 games in a row where we just kind of felt bad coming out of it. There's a lot that goes into that, and I feel like having a solid week will do us well. For me, it's the more consistent effort is what I just want to see from the squad, where they actually just, I hate to say care, but just like you get scored on, like that matters. Be mad about that. And does that come from a more vocal leader? Like I know like there's guys out there that are directing, and I've said it before, but just like you got to care, you got to show like some fight in that moment. And it just felt like we lacked a little bit of moxie, or like 2023 season is like nobody's going to beat us, and if we go down, we're going to come back because we know what we got. And right now it just feels like we don't really know what we have.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. I think, a step forward on that is, for me, some of the things that we need to do to correct the form is having someone up front to take accountability. I mean, we've talked about all of our leaders that we have on this roster in the back line that can be able to captain: Robinson, Miazga, Yedlin, Hagelin at times, Obi. These guys are more towards your back end of your half, right? So we need guys up top that are going to be able to take accountability, especially when they're not putting goals behind, in the back of the net. So, I mean, Ryan, in my opinion, I mean, we're talking Miles might be out next match, maybe, depending on his fitness. I honestly, the only people I've seen vocally, right, which once again, this is what we see as fans. We don't see behind the scenes. We just see people yelling on the pitch, right? So to us, if you're yelling at your, other constituents, you care. You care more. You want to be a leader. You're a vocal leader. So in that just putting that out there first, I think Yedlin should be captaining in the back until Miazga gets back. Then Miazga can take over as captain. But I truly feel that I've only seen two people take accountability as far as like getting other players on the same page. One is Yedlin, and the other one was Anunga when he took over as captain for the game against Maragua, right? So I think those two guys I've only seen, in my opinion. But what are your thoughts on Yedlin as captain, even if Robinson is in the lineup?
Yeah, I want just, again, more accountability for sure. And if that comes from him, great. Like, is it as much of like the distinction to like have that captain's armband on, or can he still do that without that? Like, and I think like, I feel like Yedlin, you see it, like you said, you've seen him
he
do
gets to
that,
talk to the ref.
That's true. Yeah, that's fair. But I mean, like, I hate to say this, but just like having pride to wear the crest, and there's so many pieces that like, I don't know if they have that like feeling of like what we're fighting for. I felt like in 23 or even last year at times it's like we knew like we're fighting for the city. We're fighting for each other. And like right now it's just a lot of individuals that don't really know like what their like goals are. You know what I mean? Or like what their like one thing that we're going for is. And some of that is like mixing up different people with them or different formations. So consistency moving forward, whether that be in a single formation, I think you got to select, like, do you go 4 back, do you go 5 back, and you stick with that. And then just say, this is what your roles are, this is what you have to do. I'm going to pose a question to you because there's a lot of chat about it. Denke as a solo striker, or does he need someone next to him?
I think this is something similar that we saw with Brenner, to be honest with you. I think Denke has been phenomenal to begin his FC Cincinnati career. He's had 3 game-winning goals for us. So he has been that savior, that Lucho figure that we've had in the past. However, this is a new team. This is not the same team where we can rely on Lucho to be able to create every single chance. We can't rely on Denke to win every single game because, once again, he's the sole striker up top, right? So when I say it's kind of that similar Brenner situation, you bring in a guy like Brandon Vasquez that is that physical body that's able to kind of fend off some of those defenders, so that way Denke can be more of a poacher, be more of kind of in between the lines type striker. And I think that's what we're missing, Ryan. I think we're missing a big guy striker up top, and you're not getting that from a Santos, a Kubo, or Shano, Bear, like whoever else you want to put up there with Denke. You're just not getting that.
Well, Denke loves the physical aspect.
He loves it, but is he winning the balls? Is he winning the balls?
Okay, he does, but honestly, I feel like in the last couple games, like he hasn't had the effort to do it because he's constantly finding himself in a double team.
Yeah,
and you try to play him, and he's out wide trying to receive the ball, and there's 2 guys on his back right away. And so how is he going to be able to create a moment from that? Like, I think he has the capability to do it. It's just not consistently at the level that we need because we're always finding ourselves under pressure. He's always having these multiple guys on him. So does having another player closer to him unlock the defense? And I think it does. I really think that if they had to account for Orishano or somebody that can run behind, like, we just really haven't had a lot of testing balls behind the back line, if you really think about it. Like, you've had a lot of play where the defense is in front of us and you have to run at them and try to create, in a tight space with multiple defenders.
So Pat in his press conference after Charlotte, he was calling for we've got to have more crosses in the box. We've got to have more this into the box. People got to be on the end of those crosses for us to be able to, get into the game and do all that.
That's for sure. Like, okay, that's one part of it. I'm talking more build up though, and how do we progress the ball to the point where we get those chances or even those crosses? And like, it just doesn't feel like we're able to test the back line that way. Like, I just feel like it's like Denke Island, and like Kubo sometimes will come in and try to run behind, and Orishano, sometimes will do overlapping. And you saw Yedlin kind of run around Orishano more this game to create some chances, but consistency with doing that. And I just feel like in a lot of ways, like Denke's played a ton of minutes, and to be asked to play that physical against every team, and honestly against a really good defense in Charlotte, like you saw what happened when they brought Santos in as a second striker. He changed the match because he had that burst of speed. He could test the back line and stretch the back line. And we just didn't see that consistently from Denkey. So, like, if moving forward, that's the way you want to go, like you said, either a big body, that takes some pressure off of Denkey, or how can we create kind of behind the back line and unlock it that way? That'll be interesting to see. We both touched earlier, though, how about Matt Miazga and like how much him being on the team can change this moving forward. And we saw, I mean, since he went out last year, just how much of an impact that has on the team. And like the record speaks for itself. When he's on the pitch, like we win, and there's always a fight. And when he's not, like, it's always kind of a question mark of like, well, who yells at us? Who does this? Who does that? So his return is up in the air right now. I think the update that we got was there's a specific plan in place for him. He followed up with his surgeon. Hopefully it will have him available in a couple of weeks, is what Pat said as of last week. And the idea was to get Matt ready both mentally and physically. So when he comes back, we want him to have the best impact that he can. And I'm kind of glad in a way that we're not rushing that, especially with how many games there are. But at the same time, like, we could definitely use Matt Miazga.
Obviously, ideally, first sub appearance or start from Miazga, we want to be in good form. I don't want this situation to be going on and then throw him into the fire, right? And be like, all right, Matt, fix it, because everybody says that you will, right? So I think that puts
starts in training.
That puts immense pressure on him, right? To be like, oh, like when Matt gets back, like everything's going to be okay. It may not. Like we're saying he's going to make a difference. We just may not see it right away, because once again, we got to remember he's coming off an injury, like physically, mentally, like it deals, or it puts a toll on you, right?
Well, and he's coming back to a different back line than when he left.
Exactly.
Never played with Hidebe. He's never played with Flores. And these, I mean, veterans of the game, they know what they're doing with whoever's there. And he's not afraid to yell at people to keep them accountable either. But yeah, I mean, is it pressure on him? For sure. But I think Matt's itching. Yeah. It's just, like we're saying, putting him in the right headspace to do that and to succeed, and not to fail and say like, oh, well, if he comes back and we do bad, like, it's on him. But I'm excited, hopefully, in the next couple of weeks to get a healthy Matt Miazga back, and Nick Hagglund, honestly, because coming up, sounds like we're going to need him. But to add some depth in the back line, Sam, FCC signed Brad Smith this past week. After the release of Brett Halsey, we had a spot open. It was a supplemental roster spot that he filled, which is huge. Honestly, for a 30-year-old left wing back to come in with 200 professional appearances, came up through the Liverpool Academy, had played for Bournemouth, for Seattle Sounders, who I think they were MLS Cup champions, with him as well. And then more recently with Houston Dynamo last year, he played with Corey Baird and Hidebe back in 23, but had been with the Dynamo, as soon as last year. But with Baird, Hidebe won U.S. Open Cup in 2023. So familiarity, I think, is good, and a lot of experience for a supplemental spot. Like, we've seen this work out so well for our team with the likes of Emil Assad and some of the other guys, that we've had in and have filled, large roles, more than maybe even what we would have expected. He's got 23 caps for the Australian national team as well. Just an experienced player. Hope that, again, depth is really what we need. Like, we saw that against Tigres. That's the biggest thing that I came out with, is like, well, who do we go to on the bench that can provide any sort of benefit to this team? And I think Brad Smith will be a good option there.
Yeah, I think this is obviously former teammate of his, but a similar signing that you saw too last year with Hidebe, right? In his free agent signing, being able to go look at that move and go, man, like, we just added a great veteran depth piece, MLS experience, just so much, right? And to a left back position or right back position that we need help, especially, we've talked about Engel's working his butt off. He's playing almost every game. He's exhausted out there. You can see it. So Brad Smith being able to come in, hopefully he's able to get acquainted. Maybe he gets a sub appearance this Saturday. We'll see. But look for him to contribute a decent amount of minutes here because we need the rotation in the back line to keep those guys fresh, healthy,
Well, it
and to challenge
reminds
them.
me, like, honestly, we haven't had great depth there since John Nelson. I'd argue like we obviously had unbelievable wingback play, from Barrial. And then you had Assad that kind of filled that role as the year went on last year. But to say like, your starter is good, your backup, has great experience too. Like we haven't had that since we had John Nelson there too. But I think they're comfortable with both players in playing a four-back system. If you want them to play a left back role or a left wing back role, both guys are able to do that. So that gives you also some flexibility, on that side. So interested to see what he can do. He did not go to Charlotte. He was left off the 18, so he's starting to integrate with the squad. I hope they get him, integrated fast. But we're starting to get a lot of these guys back in different positions. And then we're starting to lose some players and others. So he might be asked sooner than later. Don't you think?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think he'll be asked to fill roles right away. If not a sub appearance, this weekend, maybe a start. We'll see.
Yeah, true. If you real quickly want to touch on the FCC2 start of the season, Sam.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you guys have been paying attention, FCC2, not the best start to the season so far. They've had losses to Toronto and then losses to New England Revolution to begin the season. Notably, we've seen Hagelin start both of those games. Not saying that he's the reason why or anything, just was a note. But I thought another weird note was we haven't even scored a goal yet, right? So the likes of a Stefan Trilla, a Kenji, like these guys aren't putting the ball in the back of the net. And that equates to us being last in the Eastern Conference right now. I believe we're 15th, 14th, and then Columbus Crew is right above us. So both teams in Ohio kind of struggling right now, tied for the worst goal differential. And it's incredible too. We've only had one big chance the entire season, according to FOTMob, which puts us 27th out of 29th.
We played 2 games.
One big chance, Ryan. Usually in games,
that's
you have
fair.
at least 4 or 5.
This is a testament to so many new players on this roster.
No, yeah, exactly. I was about to get to it, but you didn't let me get to it.
It's completely different than last year. It is a completely different team. There are a lot of similar pieces that, maybe first team players that are dropping down or fringe players, but like none of these guys have played together.
Yeah.
And I think have both. Well, the one's been at home. The other one, the Revs, was on the road. But yeah, give them time to kind of figure it out. For Hagelin to come in and fill in some of these games, like I think, again, I want to get a Nick Hagelin FCC2 jersey. That would be sick. But yeah, something to look out for. Do they play? I think they play coming up on this Sunday.
Yeah. They play this Sunday, I believe, at home.
Okay, cool. So yeah, go check them out again. We move on to match day 5 though in the MLS, at home game against Atlanta. What a wacky kind of storyline to this one. For those who are following, 8 international call-ups for Atlanta, and more could be coming for them. So they're going to be missing a lot of first-team players. On their side, they have a pretty much new front line compared to last year. We talked about it a little bit earlier on in the season. Denke is going to be out, with his call-up as well, for Togo, I believe. And then what's the back line going to look like, with Flores, Robinson, and then I think Sam Hadebe might be headed to Zimbabwe to get his green card possibly. So there's going to be a lot of movement there. You might see an Alvis Powell, a Yedlin, maybe a Hagelin, hopefully Miles Robinson can at least play some minutes. And it was just more precautionarily, but I don't know, man. It'll be interesting. At least we're playing at home. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, no, I mean, 8 international call-ups for Atlanta is insane. I know they had a total of 10 because I think 2 of the their Atlanta United 2 guys got called up too. So 10 total, in their organization, which is insane. So you'll see a very different lineup from both squads probably going into this game. And I think what you see from this game is Atlanta trying to get a draw. right? They're just trying to get a draw, come in, probably slow the pace down as much as they can. And I think this is the opportunity for our guys up top to really just put their foot down, right, and say, hey, this is our game. This is the turning point. And then we can continue to ride the tides as guys get healthier. Miazga comes back. Denkey comes back from international break.
Yeah.
But as far as back line, Ryan, I mean, I would love to see. I think we if I had to put money on it, I'd say we see Hagelin at some point this Saturday. Probably more of a sub than a start, I would assume. But I think you see kind of a bandaged, put together back line with, maybe, Alvis Powell, Yedlin in the back. I mean, the fact that I didn't even know Hadebe might be going back to get his green card, like that's another thing where you're like, are we going to see Angle at center back and throw Brad Smith at left back? Like what's going on?
Yeah, I mean, from both sides, like I think somebody described it as like a glorified, next pro match,
Yeah.
with all the players that are going to be out. In my eyes, like at least you will have, Evander there, you'll have Orishano, you'll have Kubo, you'll have like your midfield. But can we score early? Is really what I would love to see. We saw it against Tigres, with Buka's goal, but I would love to see like us just nip all of this talk in the butt and just say like, let's just go and do it. I don't care whatever everyone's saying, what form we're in, who's out there, who's not. Who plays striker, with Denkey being out? We haven't seen that yet, at least to start. Do they go one striker system for this? Do they go Corey Baird and Santos and drop Kubo? I don't know, man. It's very interesting. I would be surprised. I think there's a lot of scenarios that, I'm going to be like, whoa, interesting, and the way they roll it out. It's not as clear cut, like what's going to happen. Of note, Sam, Obi is tied for the league lead in yellow cards with 3 already. And 5 is a 1-game suspension. So he's only a few away from that. And it probably honestly could have been a little bit more than 3. With where he was with some of his tackles.
Do you think for this game against Atlanta we see any FCC 2 players contracts purchased? We could see a Brian Schaefer, Noah Adnan possibly in the back. Thoughts?
Maybe Adnan, I think, would be a good shout. Maybe Schaefer, like you said. Maybe they just give Schaefer more of a look than Adnan since he had the look earlier in the season. Just for depth, in the back line.
Exactly.
That's not a bad shout. It will be fascinating to see how we round out, subs and everything too. I think they have an interesting fact with 8 different players, possibly 10 being out.
Mm-hmm.
That's a completely different lineup. So like you said, a draw for them is good, but like, I don't want it to be the
not for us.
I don't want it to be the 78th minute and, have it be 0-0 and we're fighting for a goal to win the game. Like, go and show why, like, on paper, we look so good as a team. You know what I mean? Like, go prove it. Like, show your home fans why. We saw a little bit of that against Toronto, but I just need more of that and more effort and just more care. And, like, I don't care who's out there. Just go and win. Like, we need winners. Like, to quote Jeff Birding, we need some winners on this team. And, again, it's early. It's very early, but I just need more fight out of that.
Yeah, I completely agree. That's my prediction is 2-0.
Okay.
I think we come back off the loss versus Tigres versus Charlotte, and the squad rebounds off of a depleted Atlanta squad. 2-0 at home, feeling good. Coming into the weekend, and it's a midday game, so maybe the form's a little bit different, rather than maybe 7:30. The old men are a little sleepy or something.
First day game of the year, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, yeah, maybe the vibes are different there. Hopefully it'll be a nice day for it. March is unpredictable right now. I'm going to challenge this team, Sam. I'm going to go 1-1. I hope they can prove me wrong and dominate. I just haven't seen enough from them to feel confident, even with Denkey out, that we have, again, the it factor to go and dominate and win a game. Like, I just don't see it yet. Like, we've been tested and like we haven't shown it. So go and show me. I hope I'm wrong. But we got to keep up, our record at home. We had 2 home matches, 2 wins. That's good. That's what we wanted.
Yeah, that's good.
Making TQL a fortress again. The away record, 2 losses. So, but one game at a time, you can focus now. You can just say MLS matches.
Yeah.
You have this one, then you have a full another week, like just one at a time. Focus your attention there. I think for a while, like we were scouting Tigres, Charlotte, like there's a lot of back and forth. Control what you can control now. And I'm hoping that, again, that we can get a positive result out of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I think we should be seeing some good signs here soon. Like you said,
get it right. I think they're going to get it right. I mean, again, like you have the talent. A lot of these guys, again, are getting acquainted to things. I don't want to say, it's all on just the newness of this team. At some point, like again, the excuses have to stop and just you have to go out there and perform.
Yep, you guys are pros.
And for those who are saying like Noonan out, like it's ridiculous. You're how many games into the season? That's ridiculous. Like there's no way, man. You can ask questions of him all you want, but like his track record is that he gets it right, and you're only this many games in with a like newer squad early in the season. Like don't jump to those conclusions, man. I hope that again, like we see, like he was yelling at some of the players or the ref at the end of that game. Like I would love to see an animated Pat get his squad fired up to play. Like that's where I would feed my energy off of. I want to see more of that, especially like after halftime in the Charlotte game, they came out and scored 2 goals right away. Like we need like some fire, in us. So I hope they did that after this past week. But Sam, to kind of move on, we came out with our first episode for 10 years of the Orange and Blue series. So if you guys missed it, we're doing a recap of some of the great moments from FC Cincinnati's 10 years. We've had some good reception from fans and followers, but go check us out on Goals TV. We'll have our exclusive episodes on there. We're going to be hearing for some players possibly and some associated with the club and some of these big moments as we come out with these episodes. We'll do it kind of periodically throughout the season. So go over there and check them out. Sam, if you're ready for a trivia question here, we'll close it out.
Yeah. Bring it.
So I had asked, just based on the formation change we had seen in the past week, what is Pat Noonan's record using a 4-back system? And this was out of 11 matches. Remind again, everyone, I think, did you say it was
5-4-2?
5-4-2, correct? Yep. And so the actual record, you missed it. You got it wrong. Sorry. 5 wins, 6 losses, and 0 ties.
All right. Well, you got the wins, right?
Yep. So interesting, not a positive record in that. There's only been 11 matches that he's played in a 4-back system. A lot of them were early on in 2022, trying to figure things out with the different personnel. Here recently, we've kind of flirted around in 2 different games now in MLS play. We'll see where he rolls out. And I don't honestly think you'll get definitive answers as to which way we go because the squad is just so all over the place with people being out. And so maybe the next match after that, you'll see a more true idea of what that's going to look like. But I thought it was interesting that he's 5 wins and 6 losses, but no draws.
Yeah, nothing. Just no stalemates. Just
either win. We're either going for it or we're gonna get killed.
The back 4 mentality.
Yeah, if you see that roll out, like it's gonna go one of 2 ways.
Yeah.
But we hope to see you guys next week to listen to our next episode. Hopefully, after a more positive week, we'll have a lot to talk about. I'm sure there's always new stuff coming out. But check us out again on all socials. Like, comment, share, and again, we'll see you next week.